So these are some of the core hard think psychological principles. The first one is you're responsible for everything that happens to you. When you're not committed, so this is principle number 2, when you're not committed, you're going to run into obstacles and you're going to do a dance with obstacles rather than move to your goal. So if I'm going that way towards the clock and I'm going to go like this, wow, purple chair. Well, it's got some other colors in it. Oh, what's this thing? And now, if I'm not committed to the goal, I could stay here doing that kind of dance all along. Or I could get really mad at the table for being in my way. Gordon, you're in my way. Or whatever, instead of going, there's my goal, correct, and on your way. So you've got to be committed to move to the goal. Otherwise, you tend to do dances with obstacles. There's a Hamburger theory of emotion. Hamburger theory of emotion says, and it's kind of the same way. So there's a man who's driving along. He's hungry, so he stops. He's got no place in particular to go. He's just driving. He stops and has a hamburger. And the hamburger's really bad. The guy dropped it on the floor, dust and stuff, and he just put it back in and maybe scraped off the dust a little bit, but there's still a little bit left in. And maybe he put extra mayonnaise on it or ketchup or something to make it taste a little bit less. But you're sensitive enough that when you bite into it and get some dust and hair between your teeth, you get upset. And then you complain to him, and he goes, "You're just crazy. You should eat my hamburger. Everybody likes my hamburger." So you decide, "Wow, did you have a bad hamburger too? You know, that guy's terrible. Mine had hair in it, and maybe, you know, I get Jason to become my recruit, and we're going to get this guy." And he fights you. So the next thing you do, you're going to go organize the local town newspaper to have a campaign against this diner. And, you know, you spend 3 weeks there fighting this guy because he produced this hamburger that was full of dust and whatever that you really didn't eat. Now, contrast that with a guy who's on his way to a specific destination at a specific time. He has the same hamburger. He goes, "Yeah, this is awful." He has a problem with a guy because he won't get a refund, so he goes to the next place, gets another hamburger, and is on his way. If you're not committed and you don't know where you're going, you're going to do that. So I get experience with people in my Super Trader program. I try to measure commitment before they get in. It's the thing I can least measure. And some people do dances with obstacles that get in the way, and in 3 years they might never finish lesson 1B, which is the second lesson, or it's the half of the first lesson. Other people, you know, might finish the whole program in the first Super Trader 1 in 6 to 9 months because they don't do dances with obstacles. So that's an example of that. And I have no way of measuring it. But we are going to add a new part of lesson 1A that might be a prerequisite for all of you. Don't have to worry about it. It'll be a prerequisite for new people, so I can get their meta programs to see if certain meta programs might produce this. You can just do it optionally if you want to. So I'm working on that lesson now. So The most important commitment you need to make as a trader is the commitment to work on yourself. So all of the stuff that we've been talking about this morning is part of that. It's the opposite of what people usually do. And it's very scary to do until you get used to doing it and see the benefits. So I'll give you an extreme example that I recently had, and it's with somebody who came into the Super Trader program with a score of 84 on the happiness test. And he went to India and was pronounced awake, but he said he was already awake ahead of time. And he decided, he basically told me he didn't have any parts or any personalities going on in there, and that he'd gotten rid of most of his beliefs. Maybe some of you know who it is. It doesn't matter whether you do or not. And my impression was, well, he's not like anybody I've ever seen before. So he ended up doing all the lessons in his own order. I think he did lessons 18 and 19 first, and he did everything out. And I'm going, I don't know what to make of this guy, because, you know, he may be more advanced than me, but I'm not sure. And he's making up his own rules for how to do the Super Trader program. I'm going to do this lesson, then I'm going to do this lesson. He's even telling me I should change the orders of the lessons, because he skipped 2, 3, 4, because they weren't transformational lessons as far as he was concerned. So then we get towards, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, I went to an Adashante workshop, and he was at that workshop too. And I came up with an idea, because he's very overweight, and I said, okay, well, you're at such an advanced stage of evolution. One of your transformation is, I want you to get yourself much healthier. I want you to lose 40, 50 pounds, and his feet are kind of swollen, so I want you to take care of your feet. And I was of the assumption that maybe he was at a high enough state in terms of his evolution that he could just do this, think about it, and it would all happen. And the next thing I know, he's telling me about how he has to go on a specific diet, and that he has to do certain kinds of exercises. When he does those exercises, his feet swelling seems to go away, and then suddenly he's going from a being person to a doing person. And I found this really, really interesting, because the lessons he insisted he didn't need and was trying to, for his transformation, were the ones he skipped at the very beginning by inventing his own program. And then he did Libby's program, and Libby discovered a part that was trying to control things. He said he didn't have parts, which I thought was all very interesting. So he might be the last person who can operate at a level that makes me think he might be higher up than I am and can set his own rules. So if any of you want to try that, it won't work anymore. That's a new game. So another core principle is do what you love. If that doesn't include trading, then you probably shouldn't be a trader. Because when you find your purpose and you do what you love, that's when you're going to be happy and you're going with the flow. And if it's not part of trading, then probably you shouldn't be trading. But that's the nice thing about Super Trader 1. When people go through that, they've evolved enough that they can figure that out. And they're happy figuring that out. The best clue is your mission and purpose, or to your mission or purpose in life is what you love. And if you fight that, you're fighting the flow of your life. Principle number 4 is you are a crowd inside. We've already talked about that. Who you think you are is different aspects of that crowd. So every time you say the word I, it's a different, probably some different personality talking. Parts all have good intentions, and if you but if you ignore them, they start doing what they want in order to. And so you ignore them, you don't realize they're there, you think they're all me. The lump sum is me, and then they can conflict with each other, and the next thing you know, you're in conflict, and you're not whole. So you can eliminate parts through negotiation, through transformational meditation, which we teach in Peak 202, and Libby teaches in her course. So another principle, you must learn your identity and spiritual beliefs to determine whether they're useful or not. They're all useful within a certain context, but what's the context that you're going to be? Are they useful in the trading context, for example, if you want to be a trader? A good example of this, and I really got this when I went to Polynesia, and I did a tour with an anthropologist. And he was an American anthropologist, and he was talking about the Polynesians 200 years ago, and how the coconut was the god. The coconut was the center of life. I mean, it provided milk, it provided food, it provided materials for building. Everything depended on the coconut. And they talked about examples of Captain Cook would come in with his big ship, and they might think it was very strange and foreign, so they might attack something that's foreign, but one cannon shot towards these war canoes is enough to scare them to decide, well, maybe this isn't threatening, this is a god. And then Captain Cook takes them into his cabin and shows them all these miraculous tools made out of metal that they've never seen before, and he gives them gifts. So they take the gifts, and they do what you would do with anything that's precious, like a coconut, and they bury it in the ground so it will grow. That's what you do with important things. You bury it in the ground. And then they decided Captain Cook was a god, and they prayed to him. They put his picture up on the altar, and they prayed to him, and they prayed he'd come back and give them more gifts, and he did. So he must have been a god, because he answered their prayers, and he gave them more gifts. And then there were examples of the French Polynesians basically went on, and they found New Zealand. So they had to get this big canoe. It was like 50, 100 feet long, and had all kinds of people paddling and could go thousands of miles. And they had, of course, their coconut, and they go into New Zealand, and the coconut is the source of everything. And they plant it in the ground in New Zealand, and it doesn't grow. Because New Zealand's very south, where it's pretty cold. But of course, in New Zealand, they're all plants, and huge plants, and much more useful plants perhaps than the coconut. But it was really a fascinating study of how the coconut dominated their life. So everything, beliefs around the coconut was there, and you could see the utility of the coconut, and those beliefs were useful in that context because that was the center of their life. And you can also think of, some beliefs have to be real, like gravity's real. If you go up high and you'll fall down and go splat, so that's a real belief. But what if you're not in a context of this physical world? Like, what if you go to the point where you're God in the original sense of the word, and And you haven't created anything yet. You haven't created a physical world. So gravity and those kinds of beliefs are only useful within the context of a physical world. So you can see how beliefs become useful within a context. And spiritual beliefs, I don't think spiritual beliefs go through the same paradigm as the rest. Spiritual beliefs should be evaluated simply by one thing. Do they separate you from the universe, or do they bring you into oneness with the universe? And you don't even have to go into all what does it get you into, what does it get you out of? Does it bring you into oneness, or does it bring you into separation? So if you have a spiritual belief that says, for example, and this might press somebody's buttons, I am a God-fearing person. Well, you know, and God-fearing to you might not mean you fear God. You might have a different interpretation, meaning you respect God. You just use the word fearing. But does that bring you towards oneness with God, or does that bring you towards separation? I would suspect God-fearing brings you to separation. You might not believe you can have an internal guidance, for example. So those are, you can determine whether your spiritual beliefs are useful on that basis. Awareness will help you change any non-useful belief unless that belief has charge on it. So you become aware that it's not useful, you can change it. But if it has charge on it, then you have to release the charge, which is what the next point 10 is. And you can use the various methods that we've talked about briefly in the last section. Sedona method, the method in Trading Beyond the Matrix of really feeling your feelings, the method we teach in Peak 101, the park bench technique. So you are, number 11 is you are the most important principle in your trading, so you must continually monitor and work on yourself to trade well. And if you really get what I said at the beginning about how you are a meaning creator and not it's all made up, then you can really see how it relates to everything. And you know, you might go, well, I understand some of that, but the market's real, and that's why I illustrated the candlestick. I just drew a line on a graph, and you decided, oh, that's a candlestick. And that represents a period of time of trading. It's a very poor representation. So when you discover a major issue that's blocking you, you need to solve the issue and keep, instead of doing a dance with it. Such dances can last a lifetime. And what Hale was doing in the example of the chair, with the chair as a stored feeling, those are all the dances you can do with a feeling. Like, mine is really heavy. How's yours?
Mine too.
I know. Your best friend is your internal guidance. Learn to use it. And the more you clear out of this other stuff, the easier it'll be to listen. But don't mistake intuition or internal guidance for wishing.
Sounds the same.
You need to learn what fits you. And we're going to talk about this afternoon or tomorrow. Because you can't trade a system that does not fit you. Now, fit you might mean doesn't fit your beliefs, doesn't fit your style of trading, what you feel you're capable of doing.